From the Tower of Babel through to the League of Nations to today's United Nations. They are organisations that try and encompass human ideals, but the grim reality usually overcomes our better nature. Do we expect too much from these all-too-human institutions? Is the UN fit for purpose? And what is it? Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
Draft Resolution A/ES11/L7 is adopted.
The United Nations has been with us for the past 79 years, uniting 193 sovereign states. Its system includes many specialized funds, programs and agencies. The World Bank Group, the World Health Organization, the World Food Programme, UNESCO and UNICEF, to name a few. The Secretary General is the organization's top officer, whose task is to mediate, pronounce international law and admonish any member should they break it. In short, the person is responsible for holding together the jigsaw puzzle of strikingly different and, at times, opposing cultures, ideals and narratives. Last but not least, there are the UN peacekeeping forces, better known as the Blue Helmets, a moniker originating from the color of their headwear. However expansive the UN may be, the basic question remains, is it any good? Naming urban structures after the UN has become somewhat standard in different geographical latitudes. Warsaw, for instance, has its UN roundabout. And this, arguably, best exemplifies the United Nations' nature. It goes in circles and is seemingly doomed to be going in circles until the end of times. The first spin of the UN wheel was even before the organization came to exist. Following World War I, the time was ripe to establish the first world governance organization that would mediate between the planet's nations in a hopeful attempt at preventing future global bloodshed. The League of Nations, established on January 10, 1920, was supposed to be just this kind of organization. Relying mostly on the armed forces of World War I allies, the League was unable to enforce its resolutions, keep to its economic sanctions, or provide lasting global peace. This was because members felt reluctant to comply with sanctions. Many key countries opted out of the organization in the 1930s. Overall, the League failed to prevent the Second World War from happening. In 1946, it was absorbed by the newly formed United Nations. The UN peacekeeping forces failed to intervene in a timely manner and prevent genocide in Rwanda and Bosnia and Herzegovina. But perhaps the most striking one would be the failure to prevent Russia from invading Ukraine. It begs the question whether the UN Security Council should retain the security part while at least one of its 5 permanent members, Russia, blatantly destabilizes the fragile equilibrium.
My guest today is Ambassador Tomasz Orłowski, the former ambassador of Poland to France and Italy. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you for your kind invitation.
We'll start off with this idea of the UN, and is it still as fit for purpose today as it was intended to be when it was originally founded? What's your
let's start
evaluation?
with principle that it is unique, global, general, and political international organization. We can't have another one with so large scope and with so general field of interest. When born in 1945, United Nations combined 2 different principles. Principle of equality of states, who is born in Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, but who was transformed in the international organization, who was after First World War a League of Nations or Society of Nations, who was very idealistic approach of international order based only on the fact that we are recognizing equality of member states. And it wasn't enough. Second World War showed us that we need to have an international order, not only equality of states, but some mechanism to restore or to maintain international order. And it was idea born during Congress in Vienna in 1815, famous international political concert of powers. And this concert of power in United Nations was identified as a Security Council, who is consisting of 5 main strategic superpower in the world.
What is the? Is this a legacy of the thinking of the times? 1945, a war finished, or at least appeared to be finished. Mm-hmm. Was there a brief moment of idealism where this could work, do you think? Or
the coalition who fought against Nazism, fascism, and all authoritarian regimes during Second World War was based on common values, based on human rights, democracy, and liberty. This values who was finally expressed by leaders of anti-fascist coalition. It means United States, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, after joined by France and China, was a founding point for United Nations. This coalition, anti-fascist coalition, it means based on some vision of the word, peaceful word who is resolving possible conflicts only with peaceful means.
Well, if you invite a country like, or a state like the Soviet Union or China, America has its own global ambitions. These are the predators are trying to resolve the sheep.
But in 1945, idea was, especially Western countries, liberal countries, consider that the common fight against Third Reich, against imperialist Italy and militaristic Japan is a common fight. And Soviet Union, China was in this moment non-communist country, but Soviet Union played during Second World War a role of let's say, ally of Western world. And this Western world consider that it could be for a larger time, for that the end of Second World War could be the new beginning of international relations based on order, security, and justice.
Yes, so how do you reform an organisation like that that has these declining powers, like Great Britain and France, for example?
Reduced power, yes. Let's say.
Who does that? Who guards the guards?
We have different, since at least 20 years, it is thinking how to adapt Security Council to the need of 21st century. First, to be more representative. More representative, it means to have Latin America, representative of Latin America, of Africa, or of Asia. To have at least India, perhaps, I don't know, Nigeria or South Africa, Brazil. But the question will be open about Japan, yes, who is the third or fourth contributor to regular budget of United Nations. How to say about Germany, for instance, who is one of the most important economy in the world and country who is entering in the security cooperation in new capacity, who is not, like it was in 1945, the representative of Third Reich. Now we have democratic Germany. But it is so hard to find the good formula, representative formula for being represented inside. We are thinking about other, more, let's say, positive way of reform of Security Council. For instance, to limit a right of veto, because the real power of these five permanent members of Security Council, it is a right of veto.
That's being exercised all the time, isn't it?
Exactly. One country from these five superpowers, P5, so-called P5, who can stop each decision, each resolution of Security Council. And we have two ideas. First, country who is concerned can't oppose veto. For instance, Russia can't use veto when we are talking about Russian aggression against Ukraine. It could be something of extremely, let's say, useful and justified. Or when a country, when we have the situation of genocide in the field, like Srebrenica, genocide or other crime against humanity, when Security Council have to say no veto in the situation when genocide is really in this, we are facing a genocide in the field. And it could be a very good way to transform Security Council. Limiting right of veto.
I mean, a final question to you, Ambassador. There's lots of criticism levied against the, some justified, others not, against the structure of the UN. What is it that's made the UN last for so long? It's not why did it ever collapse, but why it's lasted so long? Why has it been successful? In the sense that, why has the League of Nations, its predecessor, not been successful? Are there any structural things that the UN is doing actually correctly?
3 points. First, comparing to League of Nations, United Nations have this powerful Security Council who have right to restore order with peacekeeping missions, with different ways to peace enforcement as well. It is the difference with League of Nations. Secondly, United Nations was founded by 51 member states. Now we are 193. Okay. It is different to manage 193 countries.
And the third, I need to pressurize you.
The third is to replace bureaucratic organization by some way of networking. United Nations as coordination body, not governing body for the world, but cooperating with member states, sharing the same goals in politics.
Ambassador, we have to draw our discussion to a close, unfortunately, but thank you very much for coming.
Welcome. Thank you for this talk.
That's all we have time for, unfortunately, so do join us next time for How We Got Here.